The past few weeks have been a bit exhausting, and a couple of recent incidents have really highlighted that being on the spectrum puts me in a weird spot. One being a recent visit to the emergency room that is the focus of this video. Between having a brain that functions differently and growing up poor, it's not a surprise that it has been difficult to resolve some of the issues I've had to face. Because of how exhausted I am, I'm just going to craft and talk for this video. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, all three, whatever. Recently I had to go to the emergency room because I had horrible pain. If you grew up poor, when medical issues arise, you weigh the severity to the cost. If I wrap up this cut with enough gauze and duct tape, can I avoid stitches? Do I really need all the fingers on my left hand, or can I get by with 3? If I drink enough water, will that balance out that stinging pain to the left of my rib cage? My cramps are always this bad, but it's slightly worse today. Is it really an issue? So needless to say, my first instinct is, I'll be fine. I'll be miserable for a few hours, but I'll be fine. However, after 4 hours it was getting worse, so I decided that I was probably not fine. The last time my pain was that intense, my gallbladder needed to be removed. I thought, well, I know I can die from a burst appendix, but if it still hurts in another hour, maybe I'll go to the ER. Because I had waited so long, all the non-ER options were closed, so I didn't have a choice in going to the hospital. Currently, I live by myself, and I'm not going to call an ambulance to take me to a hospital less than a mile away, or even an hour away for that matter. Most Americans can't afford an ambulance, and neither can I. I threw on whatever clothes were nearby, left my hair a complete rat's nest. So like many a person that has had to fight through pain to function, I drove myself crying and clutching the wheel for the 0.76 miles it took to get there. I hobbled to the reception desk in the ER like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. If you've had to deal with the mess of the medical system that exists in the rural United States, my experience is probably not a surprise. You see, because I drove myself and looked askew, my appearance and demeanor were immediately seen as red flags for someone only there to get a particular type of medication. To add to this, the place I live in now is the richest county in my state, so essentially, I went to a medical facility full of the mean girls from high school. The doctor and nurse were asking me questions, and as I was trying to answer them, I was trying to keep myself from hyperventilating as well. It started with the usual questions about domestic violence. About 3 of them I answered no, and that I also live alone each time. At one point, I couldn't hear what the doctor was asking, so I held my breath to hear her, and she took that as another red flag, turned to the nurse and said, yeah, she's faking it. So now, on top of this pain, I have the frustration of dealing with yet another situation where people don't believe me because I don't act or look a certain way. Under the best of circumstances, I already overthink. There's so much going on in my head at this point, I can't string enough words together to tell the doctor to shove off if she's not going to help me, and I can't think of how to explain the intense pain I feel more than I already had at that point. My job deals heavily in medical and pharmacy data, so I'm certainly aware of many of the issues that currently exist. I understand that there are people out there that are so good at faking it that it messes it up for everyone. However, that information is also tracked, and they could have looked it up. My blood work had come back clean. I have no medical history or claim history that would raise any red flags, but in this particular visit, I was dismissed and written off within 10 minutes of arriving there. Despite being a holiday weekend, there was only one other patient that I was able to figure out was there, and the waiting room when I arrived was empty, so if it was busy, I didn't see it. The doctor and nurse didn't believe me, and I think they ordered the CAT scan begrudgingly on the off chance that maybe I wasn't faking it. It was painful moving, but again, I'm used to it. When you're poor, working through the pain becomes a part of life. Something that may have started as kind of painful just becomes the daily thing you deal with, and that level of pain becomes the norm. We still need to go to work and get paid, so we just ignore it and keep moving. Sure, that one foot just sort of always drags, and every time I get a migraine, my ears bleed, but I can get to work and my coworkers know when I'll show up around the corner because they'll know the sound of my foot dragging. From the CAT scan, they were able to figure out that it was not my appendix, so a little bit of my panic subsided, at least, that I wouldn't need emergency surgery, and I definitely couldn't afford it. It wasn't the dying thing I was worried about, it was the cost. But I was still in immense pain. I was told they put some medication for pain in the IV, but I don't believe they did. because the pain didn't subside at all, and sadly it wouldn't be the first time a nurse or doctor has lied to me about that sort of thing. Once they didn't see anything in the CAT scan, they decided I was definitely faking it. They didn't really try to understand or look at any of my medical history or try an ultrasound. I was told if it still hurts, come back in 24 hours. At this point, I was exhausted and angry that the doctor and nurse treated me like a hysterical poor woman, didn't hear my concerns, and didn't appear to care. In clumsy Quasimodo fashion, I once again hobbled out to my car slowly, still crying, still in pain, still having no answers. Again, for people that are faking it, they would act the exact same way I was, and that's what hurt so much. When I got home, I basically fell to the floor after walking in the door and stayed there about an hour, I think. I, of course, did not go back to the hospital, and the pain didn't start to subside until about 5 days later. I figured, well, if I die at this point, at least I know it's not my appendix. I share this story because it's one example of how the medical system fails so many people. There is definitely a problem with people misusing the system and misusing medication, but in handling it the way we have, it creates situations like this where someone who may or may not be neurodivergent is not believed because they act a certain way. The current method of addressing pain management seems to be to assume that every patient is lying. It causes people like me to distrust the system more than I already do. By immediately writing off people as being deceitful, it also prevents searching for the true root of the problem. I still have questions from that experience. If I put on nicer looking clothes or fixed my hair, would they have believed me? Was I immediately dismissed because I looked like white trash? Was I dismissed because I was there by myself? Is it because I'm a woman? Did my crying sound fake? Should I not have held my breath to try and hear what they were saying? If I had taken the ambulance, would they have believed me? Would any of these changes have mattered? As I mentioned before, this wasn't my first negative experience. About 8 years ago, I had horrible back pain. My mom had to drive me, and I used canes to walk until I was able to grab one of the wheelchairs at the clinic. They didn't look into getting x-rays and took less than a minute to look at the physical state of my back. They just gave me a prescription for a particular pain medication that I'm sure many people are familiar with. Before the doctor on duty saw me, I could hear some of the staff outside the exam room door making fun of me for using the canes in the wheelchair. Perhaps it's just my own opinion, but that was not professional nor appropriate. After starting the prescription, I did not like the feeling. As soon as the inflammation calmed down enough for me to return to work the next day, I stopped taking it. Even though I was able to go back to work, the problem was still there because they didn't get to the root cause, and I was frustrated because I knew this issue would come back. About a year later, I had to go to the clinic and once again, using canes in a wheelchair. This doctor visit was slightly different. They still made fun of me on the other side of the exam room door, don't worry. When they asked me about my medical history, I explained that I had been there previously, what steps they had taken, and stupidly told them the prescription. As soon as I gave the prescription, they immediately stopped helping me, even though I specified I did not want that medicine again and wanted to try and find the actual cause because they didn't last time and I knew the pain would come back. I wasn't heard. They didn't look at my back, order x-rays or anything. They wrote a prescription that I recognized as an over-the-counter anti-inflammation medicine. They told me it was pain medicine and sent me on my way. I never filled the prescription because I know it's not something that would fix the pain. I never returned to this clinic again, but before I left during this visit, I told the receptionist on my way out that the staff was rude and disrespectful. If I'm using a cane, it's not for aesthetic reasons. For a while, I had considered submitting a formal complaint, but decided it wasn't going to change anything, so I didn't. I couldn't move for a couple days and missed work. Eventually, I went to a chiropractor and found out that my pain was caused by a vertebrae that likes to move out of place and pinch a nerve every now and then. Had any of the medical professionals taken me seriously, this issue could have been resolved far sooner. While there are those who are using the system, assuming that every patient is faking it is harmful, and the current biases that already exist are exacerbated. It's now been about a month since my ER visit, and I've had 2 doctor appointments and more coming up to try and figure out why this pain is just not going away. The medical system has cracks, and if we want to keep the good medical professionals from burning out, we need to try and find a better way. It's no secret that those in poverty are far less likely to go to the doctor for preventative care. If we go to the ER and feel unheard and unwanted, why would we go for any amount of preventative care or even go back to the ER? Before all this happened, I was trying to complete the next video, but I just haven't had the energy. The medical system needs a revamp for so many reasons, and until there are steps taken to try and mitigate these types of situations, it will probably continue to break down. At the moment, I still don't know the root cause, but maybe some of the other medical professionals will take me seriously. Until next time.